Greetings from India. You are listening to the Business Talk podcast. I am Deepak, your host for today's episode. We are delighted and honored to welcome Professor Manisha Pathak-Shelat, a professor in the communication area at MICA, India, as our distinguished guest on today's podcast. Professor Manisha also serves as the chair of the Center for Development Management and Communication and is the editor of the Journal of Creative Communications. She is an internationally experienced scholar, media consultant, trainer, and researcher, having worked across India, Thailand, and the United States. She holds a PhD in mass communication from the University of Wisconsin, Madison, USA, and a PhD in education from the Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda, India. Her research focuses on communication for social impact, digital youth cultures, civic engagement, transcultural citizenship, media and information literacy, gender, and the ways ordinary individuals use media to exercise agency, explore identities, and engage in social change. Professor Manisha's project have spanned health communication, narrative selves, transcultural citizenship, and the media literacy, with a current focus on the digital youth cultures in India and the global south. She has collaborated with scholars from Australia, the UK, Finland, the Netherlands, Canada, Egypt, and the USA, and her work has been published in leading journals, including International Journal of Communication, Communication Monographs, Journal of Consumer Behavior, Journal of Youth Studies, New Media and Society, and Communication Inquiry, among others. She has also contributed chapters to several academic books and has shared her research as an invited speaker at international platforms. Professor Manisha has authored numerous books and articles that have received wide recognition across leading media platforms. Her forthcoming book, Parenting the Next Generation, to be published by Routledge, explores parenting Gen Alpha and the challenges of navigating diversity and technology. She has led numerous capacity building programs for non-profit, state governments, corporations, and international organizations focusing on communication, media, and information management. In this episode, Professor Manisha Pathak-Shelat shares insights from her research on youth, media, and the making of digital citizens. So, without further delay, let's welcome Professor Manisha Pathak-Shelat to the podcast. Professor Manisha, it's a true privilege to host you today. Thank you for taking the time to join us and discuss your work.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you for the invitation. And what a pleasant surprise it was, that you are giving this topic importance in a business-related program. So I'm really delighted.
Thank you. Professor, to start, could you explain what digital citizenship means in today's media-saturated world, particularly for youth?
Right. So I think let us start with the word citizenship first, right? Because this is one word, which there are very few concepts that have endured, across historical and geographic lines, starting from, say, Greek agora to now. This is one of the concepts which have stayed relevant. But its form and its interpretation and its definitions have, kept changing according to the times and places. So conventionally, when we meant citizen or citizenship, it was always closely connected to a nation, a state, or a city, right? And so earlier, if you fight, you have to fight for your state and you pay taxes and then you are a citizen. And that was one reason why a lot of women were not considered, citizens, because they didn't go to the wars and they didn't own property. And then when participatory democracy, representative democracy, came into existence, then voting became one of the ways, that you actually showed your citizenship. But these ideas were designed, when digital media were not there. And right now, the world is governed by two very strong forces, right? Digitization and globalization. And this is the context in which digital citizenship has actually come into existence. It is also very closely linked with global citizenship, because these are the concepts, which have come because of these two forces. So very briefly, if we say that digital citizenship then is a more relational concept, than a legal political concept. And it is exercised, through digital media, through civic participation, which goes much beyond paying taxes or voting. So, for example, especially for youth, it includes activities like expressing opinions, sharing stories and information, advocating or mobilizing for causes that they really believed in, also engaging in discussion about public issues. And what is very important is that digital citizenship allows you to participate beyond your geographic borders and beyond your nation state. So you don't have a legal status as a digital citizen, but it allows you to express solidarity and participate in communities, with people with whom you have common concerns. And very interestingly, some of these people, many of these people you may have never met, and you might never meet in person. So that's the most interesting part about digital citizenship.
Very interesting. Professor, how do young people in India or globally engage with digital media differently than previous generations?
Right. Yeah, they engage very differently. So if we examine the past and coming generation, we clearly see that there is an increased role of media in everything that this young generation does. So with each subsequent generation, the role of media in daily life has been increasing, right? So especially if we talk about Gen Z or Gen Alpha, that is those born after the late 90s, late 90s or after, we see that digital media have not remained an isolated or a distinct part of their life. And I'm talking about, of course, youth who have access to this media, right? Youth who have these resources. Still, there are many young people in the world who don't have these resources. But for those who have access to digital media, we see that, the boundaries are being blurred. So it's a seamless thing for them. Like for our generation, we were talking about real and real and online and offline, and this is work and this is leisure and this is social and this is political. None of these boundaries are so strict when young people use digital media. So for them, it all comes seamlessly together, whether fun, work, fun and social work, learning and socializing, being a consumer and being an activist, all of this is seamlessly done without boundaries using digital media. So this, you can say, has also very remarkable consequences for how they engage as citizens. The world across, there is literature that shows that young people don't participate much in the old ways of civic activities like joining political parties or supporting political parties and, attending meetings. But they actually use media to enact their civic activities. So they will join networks and then they'll join platforms and they would discursively work on the issues that concern to them. It's also called like life politics. So for them, it's not that this is a small issue, that this is a big issue. Whatever they think is important for them in their daily life, they freely participate in them. So a lot of people also criticize this, as collectivism or slacktivism. But our research shows that you can't completely dismiss these online, digital media related activities also. At least they are a very good supplementary activities. If we don't want them to be, of course, a substitute activities, but this use of digital media can really supplement other activities well.
Professor, could you share a few case studies or examples where youth have actively shaped conversations or driven change through digital media?
Yes, Deepak. So first of all, I would say that it is a myth that, if we think that any change can be solely driven by digital media. Many a time we see that, a lot of movements go viral and we think that, wow, this is causing a real impact and they very quickly fizzle out. So what research has shown, our work has also shown that the real change happens when there are local groups of youth actively working, in their local places. But where digital media actually helps them is they help them to take their issue beyond their geographical borders, and then they get resources and solidarities from all over the globe. So in India also, there are several case studies, I think in 2020 in Bangalore, a young girl started a movement called Saal Bhar 60. That was more for like improving air quality in Bangalore. There is also something like called Dalit Camera. It's a YouTube based channel, and it gives voices to the marginalized youth, and they can freely talk about their experiences, caste discrimination, news about them without gatekeeping that comes from traditional media. Then I would say that so many Indian young people are active in the climate action movement. They've joined global groups, they work locally. Uh, Another interesting example in India could be Being Indian. It's a YouTube channel, and they have a series of videos, and they use humor to engage young people, but they do address socially sensitive issues like, caste, bias, sexuality, body norms. So, also, like I can talk about two gender-based movement. Of course, a lot of Indian girls and women participated in Me Too, but very much based in India. We had Pinchra Tod, which was about questioning the strict norms, for hostel curfews for only girls. So the argument is that if the boys harasses, the boys should be locked up, not girls. So that was an interesting case. Also, there was Happy to Bleed and Lahuka Lagan for menstrual hygiene. So lots of these case studies are in India. I mean, globally, Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future is quite well known, and you see a lot of Indian youth being part of it. Black Lives Matter has captured imagination globally. And taking off from that, we also had Dalit Lives Matter. An interesting case study is from Argentina, and it's called Ni Una Menos, that is fighting violence against women. And that has really created impact. There was one in Nigeria called Bring Back Our Girls. This was like long back in 2014, but that also had captured the global attention. And then, of course, Me Too very recently, had like women from all over the world coming together. So yes, we have many, many case studies which are global or which are very locally centric, but the impact is uneven.
Yeah. Dr. Manisha, what are some of the risks and challenges that youth face as a digital citizens, and how can media literacy help mitigate them?
Right. So, see, like when I speak especially to worried parents about their kids' digital participation, I always tell them that any kind of participation will involve some kind of risk, right? So we can't just, keep our kids unexposed to all these things. Like, even if we know that if they have to cross a road, there is a risk involved, right? But we do let them cross the road. So, of course, there are risks, and some of the major risks that we see these days are, one is cyberbullying and online harassment. That has really become like very, very worrisome. That includes like hate speech, trolling, threatening your peers. This can happen to you due to your identity or your political ideology or your opinions, anything, or just because you have certain opinion on a polarizing issue and the other side does not agree with you. So that's a major risk. The other thing, especially with very young children, is exposure to inappropriate content, especially sexual and violent content. And this has again been shared many times by children. Also, privacy violation is one major challenge, identity theft. Misinformation and disinformation and fake content is again causing a lot of concern because it's with increasing use of AI, the risk is like becoming more and more acute. This is true for men also, but mostly a lot of young women that find stalking, soliciting, grooming, and sexual abuse. It can very much, be at risk for these things. And then ultimately, the mental health issues that occur because you have experienced any of these things. So these are some of the challenges I think we should worry about when we think about young people and their digital media participation. But I would say that definitely media literacy can help. So I would say that media literacy can help youth in two ways. All of us, in fact, not just youth, it can help all of us in two ways. Just a minute. So one thing is that it can help us as consumers, media consumers. So it can help us to contain and respond to the risks. And then second, it can make your participation more satisfying and more enriching. So I would say that, these days, all of us are called, and especially youth, are called producers. Right? You are a consumer and a producer of media at the same time, because a lot of us create media and then distribute them. So I would say that as a wise consumer, media literacy can help you with critical thinking. It can help you evaluate the content that you encounter. Like you get much better at recognizing bias, for example. You can read motives behind certain messages, like what is the person trying to do here? You can find out about the authenticity of the source from where the information is coming. And you can also, hopefully, it's becoming difficult, but you can spot manipulation. So it can also help you monitor your own media use, like so that you don't fall prey to addiction, for example. It can also, these days, media literacy includes algorithm literacy, right? And algorithm are shaping our media use and lives like hugely. So that is also one important point. And lastly, when we do media literacy with young people, we also tell them who to talk when something undesirable happens. So that is one thing. And of course, as a producer, it shows you how to very responsibly and ethically create content, right? It makes you alert that what kind of consequences your post can have for other people. It can also make you very vigilant about your digital footprint. And then finally, it can also teach you creative skills and strategies, like how do you use images, sound, videos, text in such a way that your messages become engaging. So I think both as consumer and producer, media literacy can help us with these risks.
Professor, how does critical pedagogy contribute to fostering informed, reflective, and responsible digital participation among young people?
Yeah, I think it can help a lot because let me first very briefly explain what is critical pedagogy and how it is different, right, from conventional pedagogy. So in conventional pedagogy, the teacher gives information or knowledge and it is deposited, in students. It's called the banking kind of education. But critical pedagogy is a philosophy of education that emphasizes the role of teaching in promoting critical thinking. So that is one important part. It also believes that learning has to be transformational. So once you are educated, you would want to change what is not right in the world. It also encourages you to reflect on your own experiences, like engage in dialogue, and then challenge the social structure, especially the power dynamics in the inequalities, which we normalize that, yeah, that's how the world is. Critical pedagogy prepares you to challenge all this, right? And that's why, it's very important, of course, in preparing youth to engage better with media. And I would want to remember Paulo Freire, who's a Brazilian educator and wrote this book, the pedagogy of the oppressed, who is very closely, like it's the most important name associated with this pedagogy. So what I think critical pedagogy can do to help youth with media is that, they don't become passive users of digital media. They become this critical questioning users. And what they can do is that first thing they can question, for example, is that why is all the digital power consolidated in a very small number of global companies, right? Tech giants. And what are the consequences for this kind of power concentration for ordinary people, for their access, for surveillance, and everything else, right? They can also question the structural inequalities. So they can ask questions like, okay, who has digital access and who does not? Who has voice in digital public sphere and who does not, and why? So I think this is one very important contribution of critical pedagogy. The other thing is, as we said, it's a reflective kind of pedagogy. Students can learn to reflect on their own media use, in their own media creation, in their own digital footprints, ethics, responsibility. And then, if the students have paid attention to the transformative nature of critical pedagogy, they can really use digital media to engage with social issues and create positive social change. So, I think it's a very, very important pedagogy for good use of digital media.
Professor, in your research, have you observed any significant gender differences in how youth interact with media or in access to digital spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. So gender differences do exist in everything about digital media, right from access to use to acquiring skills. But the thing is that this is not happening in a simplistic manner. So we can't say this is happening to all the girls. Girls do this, boys do this, or girls are always discriminated. So for this, we in communication and feminist theory, we use the word intersection. So that this difference is observed at different intersections. So like gender with class, gender with caste, gender with whether you live in rural area or urban area, right? So for example, we have seen that in low income families, girls face the most discrimination. They have the least access to media and technology. They have much less opportunities to learn new technological skills. There's so much more surveillance on them than than boys, So in low income environment, it's very likely, less likely that a girl would have her own mobile. And in case she has it, or even when she's using a shared device, parents, boyfriends, everybody often checks their phone. What are you doing? Who did you send that picture? Why did you call this person? So, low income families, we have consistently observed this. But interestingly, even girls from high income families, if they live in strongly patriarchal cultures and strongly conservative cultures, same surveillance happens to them also, right? On the other hand, we also have high income and very highly educated families when a girl might have much more access and higher skills than, say, a rural boy from a low income family. So yes, gender difference does exist, but in combination of all these other factors. We also found that boys also face things like, bullying, trolling, threats, but it's much more like the degree is much higher for sexual abuse for girls. That is for sure. And so many girls have had mental health problems because, just because somebody doesn't agree with how they post their pictures or their opinion or their political ideology, like they often face rape threats or very very high degree of sexual trolling. So the slut shaming, revenge porn, deep fakes, cheap fakes, all this affect girls much more severely than boys. There are all, I mean, the way girls and boys use digital media, you also find gender differences. But not like all girls, all boys. But in generally, we have found a pattern, for example, that boys are more active on gaming platforms. But even again, we find that girls outnumber boys on the gaming platform that is Roblox. Also, we found that there are a lot of girl gamers, and their complaint is that there are not enough games designed for them, the kind of games that they like. So it's not that they don't like gaming, but they don't like the kind of games that come to the market. So that is also very interesting gender difference, I would say.
How can educators and parents effectively support youth in becoming both empowered and ethical digital citizens?
Yeah, they can do a lot, I would say. So when so I have written one book on parenting, and a new one is just coming out, and I give like three very basic, talk about basic parental practices, and that is very much applicable to educators also. So I would say that modeling over preaching, right? Dialogue over punishment, and participatory family decision making over parental rules and control. I think these three things have to be practiced now, and especially with Gen Alpha, which is the one which is now growing up. So, if, shall I elaborate a bit on each?
Yeah, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. So, uh, when we say modeling over preaching, we have observed that parental behavior guide a lot of children's behavior. So more than what they preach, so they will ask, this generation will ask you questions. They will not just take things, without challenging you. So they will immediately say that if I'm not allowed to bring my phone to the dinner table, why is dad allowed to bring his phone to the dinner table? Or when I am asked to make an eye contact when I talk to somebody, why mom is not looking at me when she's on her phone and I'm asking her a question, right? If you are laughing at, sexist jokes or jokes on certain religion or communities, or you post that kind of material, your children are going to see it. And either they'll challenge you or they might say, yes, this is okay. My parents are doing it. So, parental behavior about technology is very important, right? Second, punishment without discussion or without explaining why this punishment, children will behave in negative ways, usually. So, like they will lie, they will hide, they will rebel, or they will just become indifferent. That, okay, you keep saying that, I'll do what I want to do. Right. Also, if they don't know that why there are certain bans or certain control or certain limits or curfew like put on them, then they will be tempted to repeat the behavior when nobody is looking. Also, the parents and teachers have to remember that peer pressure is a very big thing in young people's life, right? So, if we don't talk to our kids, not just about digital media, about everything in their daily lives, then very soon, we will lose out to their peers because they talk about these things. And then third, I would say that, we adults have to concede that there are many things about digital media that our children know much more than we do. Right? So we have to open to that. So I would say that that doesn't mean that they don't need adult guidance or adult intervention, but media related and even other family decisions cannot be made without involving kids, especially when those decisions are about them. Right? So I think that kind of dialogue is very important. Also, parents have to themselves keep up with and teachers, because otherwise you will never know what is happening in your kid's life. So that doesn't mean that you learn every AI tool or every technology, but you should at least be aware of what's going on. So these things are very important for both parents and teachers. On a more, I would say, formal basis, digital literacy sessions are very important. Everything from the skills to ethics to responsibility, opportunities. Right? Also, teach them how to create with media and not just consume with media. So we have talked about this. I would also say that discussion at home and in the school on privacy and safety, I think, is very important because again, there is this trend these days that everything that goes wrong is associated with social media. So we associate things like, mental health issues directly with social media. But these are not social media issues. These are larger societal issues, right? So loneliness, anxiety, depression, it is not that we treat them as just social media issues, but we have to come together, parents and teachers, to address them in the larger social context. So I think that is important. And then I would say that advocacy from parents and teachers for creating more safe and inclusive, digital spaces and design for children is also very important if we want good policies to be made. So in short, like parents and educators have to come together with young people and then make sure that, they have this empowered and digital use.
Professor, cross-culturally, what lessons can we learn from other countries about youth engagement with media that might inform policies or practices in India?
Yeah, yes. So, but there are many countries in the world, who are doing exemplary work when it comes to young people and digital media. And I have been very fortunate, to collaborate with several international scholars and participate in UNESCO networks. So I was also part of a large global study called Global Kids Online that studied about children's lives online. And in that study, we had like insights from all different countries in the world. So when I work with the scholars, I learn from all the best practices, that are happening in their countries. So my first brush with media literacy was way back, in the 90s. And that was like with Canadian scholars. So I was in a fellowship to Canada, and I was amazed at that time to see that they had very successfully incorporated media literacy in their school curriculum. And that is like across subjects. So it's not like media literacy as one subject, but there would be part of media literacy in history, a part of media literacy in English, part of media literacy in economics. They also had a very strong and active Canadian association with educators at all levels. So this really created a very, very conducive environment in this countries for more empowering youth media participation. Next, I had collaboration with Professor Sirukku Kotilainen from Finland, and she's considered the mother of media literacy in Finland. And she's also led the research study EU Kids Online. So I visited Finland several times and worked with her. And this is one of the countries which is doing a lot in general for children's education, very, very positive outcomes, and also for media and digital literacy. So there are school-based programs. There is a very strong support to research globally and in Finland, and industry, government, universities, they all come together to support this kind of research, which was very interesting. I also got to attend some camps with children, so in these camps, these children come together and then they work on different projects where they can have innovative uses of media, like ethical uses of media. The other thing was that youth-related programs are also given a lot of resources in Finland, So, you go to public libraries, you go to media houses, they all have programs for young people, which we don't still have in our country. Then many other EU countries, also UK has a very long-standing research and policy advocacy on child rights, right? So the Professor Sonia Livingston, for example, she has consistently researched on young people's media engagement at the London School of Economics and Political Science. So that's why I was so happy when I got your invitation, because in our country, we keep this topic as, as an isolated thing, but it's so much part of a larger academic and industry dialogue. And what I found really interesting in UK is that they seek advice and, inputs from these academics and researchers when they want to formulate government programs and policies. So I think that is something very important. And right now, my latest collaboration is with Professor Amanda Third at the Young and Resilient Research Center in Australia, Western Sydney University. And again, what is amazing is that this entire research center is completely dedicated to research on children and young people, completely dedicated to that. So it's not like one among, many things that they do. So what we found that the Australian government also launched, a strategy called Engage in 2024. It's pretty recent, and that increases young people's participation in policy making and advocacy. The other thing we can learn from Australia that they've really very seriously started paying attention to diversity in their country and inequalities in their country. So that is something we can learn. So if like I can sum up, all these experiences, and if something I would recommend for our country is that we have to give youth media engagement, its due respect as a priority for the country. Like young people is not also, but like as core participants in our country. And that also then goes for giving it a priority as an area of research, like not treating it as a fringe area or a soft area. Then, of course, some efforts have been made from NCRT and, the new policy, but we have to work across country so that media and information literacy, algorithm literacy, AI literacy now becomes part of our core disciplinary component in our school curriculum. I think that is an important step. Then, of course, we can empower our educators with more resources and training. Another very important thing we can do in India is that we can equip public spaces with technology and internet, because that would help, resource poor children and young people so much with easy, and affordable access to digital media. We are not doing this, I think, enough in our country. And that's why we have such huge digital divide. In so many countries like US, Australia, Canada, I've seen that public libraries are playing such an important role in this aspect. And then again, our country has as much more diversity and inequalities than any other country, I would say. So we have to pay serious attention to that. And then also, and we are doing this, I'm glad that we have started creating more content in Indian languages. I think that also will go a long way in helping our young people.
Listeners, as we wrap up today's conversation, it is clear that youth engagement with media is not just about consumption. It's about shaping the digital public sphere responsibly and thoughtfully. From critical media literacy to understanding the intersections of gender, culture, and technology, empowering young people as informed digital citizens is essential for a vibrant, democratic society. Thank you, Professor Manisha Pathak-Shelat, for sharing your insights and research with us. And thank you all the listeners for joining us on this journey. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you, Deepak.